Story 1. Realizing how easily someone can lie to your face while pretending to love you is unsettling. It undermines your ability to trust, even those who are genuinely good afterward. Story 2. You know that feeling when you look at someone and genuinely believe they are the person you will spend the rest of your life with? When they seem like the kindest, most loving soul, and you trust them so fully that it doesn't even cross your mind they could ever hurt you. And then they do. Suddenly, your whole reality crashes. The worst part isn't even the betrayal itself. It's that something so pure and safe now feels like a lie. It rewires your entire ability to trust. Because if they could do that, who wouldn't? And that is the worst. Story 3. Being hardened after such experiences diminishes your level of trust in others. Repeated occurrences can leave you feeling emotionally cold. Story 4. Feeling like I wasn't enough, even though deep down I knew it said more about them than about me. That insecurity lingered much longer than the relationship did. Story 5. The loss of friendship involved friends who knew but did not tell me, which felt like a second level of betrayal. Story 6. I will never be the same person I was before. Something was taken from my soul that I will never get back. I do not see the world the same way. I will never trust anyone again. I never thought this would happen to me. My self-esteem is shattered. Story 7. There is no single solution. It undermines your self-confidence. You lose trust in people and doubt your ability to discern when others are being honest with you. Ultimately, visiting my doctor to ask whether I should be tested for sexually transmitted diseases because my husband had been unfaithful with multiple partners was humiliating. Story 8. I realized that I need to stay with her despite not trusting her because our daughter has severe special needs, and I know my wife cannot physically take care of her without my help. I also cannot bring myself to put her through the pain of having my wife and me split up on top of everything else she struggles with daily. I feel trapped in a marriage I do not want to be in but have to pretend that I do for our daughter's sake. Story 9. Acting like an idiot in future relationships when your partner has a busy day at work and doesn't text much or says they are going out with friends shouldn't be a life or death situation, but your brain decides it is. Story 10. Someone already mentioned it, but I think it is difficult to accept that someone can lie to your face. Reflecting on past actions and putting the pieces together helps clarify the situation. Story 11. The number of people I was friendly with before took the stance of, I know she was unfaithful, but I'm choosing to be her friend now and not yours. While it can help with determining who you want in your life, the severity and extent of it were baffling. Story 12. Never being able to trust him completely again. We were able to move on from it, but there is always that lingering feeling every time something seems off. He knows that what was broken can never be fully fixed. Story 13. He wanted his other partner to live in the house, and since it was his, I had to leave our home with our 5-year-old and move a state away just 2 weeks before she started kindergarten. All of those changes, such as the new place, starting school, and being without her dad all at once, really hurt my child. This was all because my ex wanted to relive his youth with his troubled former partner, who looked unkempt and supported him during his relapses while I was trying to raise our daughter and had become perceived as boring. They lasted 2 weeks. Story 14. I'll never trust anyone again. Ever. My life changed completely. I'm not the same person I used to be. I hate it. Story 15. Losing my identity with the loss of the relationship has been difficult. I always viewed us as a unit. I had my own interests and friends, but I defined myself as one half of a couple. Seeing her every evening, sharing our days, and enjoying our inside jokes and references from our shared history all disappeared. I struggled to move forward after she passed shortly afterward. That history and the wonderful memories from our little moments became mine alone, making it much harder to cope. Story 16. Your view of the world changes. The kind-hearted person who loved no longer exists, and you can never look at anyone the same because everyone lies. Additionally, there is the emotional trauma that comes with betrayal. Story 17. I realized that I was more in love with the idea of being in love than with the actual person. It took me a while to understand that being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel lonely. Story 18. Paranoia. Never truly knowing if anyone but your mother is being honest and truthful about anything leads you to question everything anyone says, whether they realize it or not. Takes a lot of time to overcome, but it tends to linger. Story 19. The other person probably receives a lot of spam emails and phone calls because I use his name, address, phone number, and email whenever I want free items at car shows, conventions, and any place that asks for information. Story 20. Emotional trauma has caused what feels like a permanent alteration to my view of myself. I blame myself for it, and while I can't say that being cheated on solely caused this, I believe it definitely contributed to making it the dominant way I feel about myself. Story 21. Feeling disgusted with commitment. I will never get married again, even though I loved it. Getting divorced was absolutely traumatizing. Story 22. The fact that after 7 years together, he cheated on me when I was at my worst mentally, when I needed him the most and we were engaged at the time. The worst part was finding out she was pregnant when he knew that I couldn't have biological children. The fact that he ended our relationship over the phone, only after he cheated and got her pregnant, is devastating. Story 23. I have never been cheated on, but my boyfriend has. He is very insecure and constantly questions everything about our relationship. The residual trauma from his ex has taken a toll on us. I love him deeply and express my love every day, yet he still doubts my intentions when I take a little longer in the shower or buy a new dress. Story 24. For me, it was how quickly his family became friends with and accepted the other woman. I loved my mother-in-law, and I felt twice betrayed. Story 25. I want revenge. I have never considered myself a vengeful person until she cheated and left me for him. Story 26. Losing a great relationship due to something insignificant that happened early on and was never disclosed is difficult. It presents a tough choice. The last 5 years have been amazing, yet you've been lying to me every day about something that occurred when we had only been dating for 6 weeks. Story 27. In my case, it was the need to pursue a relationship with a coworker. I still don't understand it, other than it was a strange and unhealthy way to cope with my ex cheating on and disrespecting me with another coworker. Either way, I'm glad I never actually acted on that impulse. Story 28. Constantly looking at other women while in public, hoping your partner doesn't notice and check them out in front of you. Story 29. Trauma lasts for years, making it difficult to overcome. Trust and faith in relationships can be severely impacted. There is so much more to consider. Story 30. Negatively changing someone's personality and perspective can impact them for the rest of their life. The happiness that person wanted to bring to a relationship may be forever altered or lost completely. Story 31. The smiles I noticed on the faces of so-called friends when they found out what he had done and that we had split up, and the negativity during my lowest moments, revealed people's true colors in the end. Story 32. I fear getting close to people and have a fear of intimacy. I experience relationship-related post-traumatic stress disorder and genuinely despise yelling, as it triggers a panic attack. I struggle with depression, worthlessness, dissociation, and extreme trust issues. I have not dated in a long time, longer than I feel comfortable admitting. Story 33. My ex cheated on me and then underwent a below-the-knee amputation. The two events aren't related. I just appreciate how it turned out. Story 34. I don't really care that much to begin with. I just think the person who is supposed to be my partner is pathetic, especially if they try to hurt me. Story 35. For me, it was a realization accompanied by some heartbreak and concern for the children, as I did not want to lose my role as their father, since we were done. 3 months later, it became clear that this decision was best for me and my children. 1 year later, I had full custody of the children. Story 36. I guess I was lucky. Erica cheated on me in 1993. I joined the army and saw the world. She had 2 children with Michelangelo. They broke up and then she had another child with Grant. They later divorced. She is now on her 3rd marriage at 51, which is fine, but I am glad I dodged that bullet. Divorced Brazilian Marley also broke up with me for Brian. She divorced him after over 15 years and is now also on her 3rd marriage. Story 37. I am constantly afraid that if my partner is alone with his friends or new people, he will find someone better. Story 38. Constant accusations of me cheating were enough for him to beat me, while the cheating was coming from him the whole time. It messed with my mind, and I didn't know if I would ever get past it. Even more troubling is that I'm addicted to him and want him back. What is up with that? Story 39. The worst trust issues ever. I'm only 23 and can't trust anyone now. I have been cheated on in all of my relationships except one. It makes you feel crazy because you don't know if you're overreacting or if you truly have a reason to worry. Feels like a never-ending cycle. Story 40. I lost my best friend, the only person I have ever trusted. I have been reliving the moment I found out for several years. Not knowing what I did wrong is probably the worst part. Story 41. Issues trusting people arose because she seemed nice and we shared similar interests. We loved the same games. Then I walked in on her with another guy, and the worst part is she didn't even care that I was there. They kept going. Now, I have a hard time trusting people. Every time I get into a relationship, I have a strange feeling at the back of my mind. Honestly, I wish I had never found out. Ignorance is bliss. Story 42. The worst thing about it is that I stayed, and it ended up being emotionally and verbally abusive. Thankfully, once it ended for good, I was able to move on much quicker. It was definitely traumatizing, though. Story 43. I feel like I have projected my insecurities onto my family by constantly questioning whether my sibling spouses are loyal to them. They are truly great people, so it's disappointing how I perceive everything differently now. Story 44. Knowing I was just a sick joke to him, and that every word and memory will now forever be tainted by how he handled everything after being caught. Story 45. The nightmares I keep having about my wife cheating on me feel all too real. My mind recalls the pain of my ex cheating on me and continuously reminds me of that hurt and the possibility of it happening again. Story 46. Self-sabotage occurs when you hurt yourself by not allowing anyone else to love you. Hurting yourself may feel safer than allowing someone else to hurt you, which is a form of self-sabotage. My therapist mentioned that I am engaging in this behavior. Story 47. The loss of self-trust can leave you feeling vulnerable and unable to protect yourself. Took me years to feel safe, secure, and strong again. Story 48. That despite giving him all of the freedom in the world, I said, I don't care what you do or who you do it with. Just don't lie to me and let me know beforehand. He did exactly that and lied about me to everyone. It was a huge shock. Story 49. Emotional trauma and the persistent thought in the back of your mind whenever you see them on their phone. What if? Story 50. I can't understand the men who realize the children are not theirs years later. All the clips of these broken souls on that television show are heartbreaking. How much hatred and spite must you feel towards the world after this? Story 51. The worst thing that came from my experience wasn't the fighting or the anger. It was how I allowed myself to believe I deserved to be treated that way. I started questioning my worth, thinking I wasn't enough. I lost myself in trying to prove myself to him instead of realizing I was always worth more than the chaos he put me through. Story 52. The upset from the other person was an inconvenience that I never wanted to experience again. That was my thought process when I was younger and didn't understand what love was. Now, the worst consequence of cheating would be actually hurting the person I love, which would hurt me as well. Story 53. I want to say that being cheated on was the worst experience ever. It really took a toll on my self-esteem and worthiness. But I am so happy it happened. I began to work on myself and do the things I wanted, becoming the person I felt like being. This journey led me to the most amazing relationship with the best partner. So what was the worst thing that happened? Paying the mortgage with my newfound love. Story 54. I'm embarrassed by my own naivete. I thought he wouldn't do that. I believed I was the only one for him and that we had built something strong for the long term. It was earth-shattering. I found out in 2018, and I'll never fully recover. However, I learned so much about my own strength and resilience. Story 55. I would say emotional trauma, from which I never really recovered. I used to trust my partner unconditionally and felt that was the right approach in a loving relationship. Turns out that betrayal hurts even more. Well, that was 15 years ago, and I am still alone. Story 56. For me, it was the dissonance. I wanted to work through it while she wanted to move on from it. The longer we worked on it, the clearer it became that it simply wasn't going to work. I don't doubt that we loved each other, and I also believe that ending it was the right thing to do. Story 57. Realizing I had handed someone the power to rewrite my self-worth, and they used it to scribble lies. Took years to reclaim the pen. Story 58. Now I trust no one, mostly because one situation caused a massive amount of chaos and I almost lost my life. Since then, I have attracted nothing but untrustworthy people. I am recently trying to open up, but it is hard. All I have ever wanted is connection, but finding connection is even more challenging these days. On top of that, not being able to fully trust is really affecting me. Story 59. I lost my wife and my best friend, whom I met in 4th grade. After the divorce, the person I would have leaned on for support was the man she was involved with. This sent me into a spiral of substance abuse that took 5 years to overcome. However, the good thing is that I met an amazing woman, got remarried, and we have a son together now. Life really does work out. Story 60. Trust issues in the future get easier over time. On the flip side, one of us owns a house while the other is a single mother of 2, not with the person they were married to, and still living in their mother's basement in their late 30s. Story 61. 2 major issues arise. The detrimental impact on self-esteem and the resultant cynicism, which leads to a tendency to withhold trust. This can result in anger and a decision to protect oneself, contributing to a negative spiral. It takes a very special, understanding, and persistent partner to help you out of that mindset, but the insecurity never entirely disappears. The worst aspect is the deception, which causes you to scrutinize every word and action, turning them into sources of pain. Take solace in the fact that even beautiful, successful, and intelligent individuals can be hurt by deceptive partners. For instance, if someone as attractive as Elizabeth Hurley faces this, then no one is immune. Story 62. The trust issues continue to affect you. The blows to your self-esteem because you weren't good enough, he had to find someone better, and the disrespect of being intimate with others without considering your well-being. Coming home and being intimate with me, I could have faced serious consequences. But worst of all, you can't take back the damage it does to the relationship. Once someone betrays your trust, they know what they can get away with. Story 63. Being told you are emotionally cold like a stone in all your subsequent relationships can shape you into becoming a great businessman. Story 64. I lost my supposed best friend, along with my partner of 7 years and 2 stepchildren. For people I loved, just gone in seconds. Story 65. I feel like I can't trust anyone anymore. I'm too scared to get into another relationship because I don't believe that a man will ever truly love me and be happy with just me. I will always be suspicious of the next man because I never thought my ex would cheat. But he did. So why wouldn't the next one cheat too? I don't know if I'll ever believe another man when he tells me he loves me because that's what my last partner said. And he still told me a half-hearted lie and slept with someone else after promising me exclusivity. All I have ever wanted was to find the love of my life, get married, and live happily ever after. And I feel like my ex ruined that for me. Story 66. The crippling self-doubt, low self-esteem, and trust issues have left me feeling almost nothing. After nearly 7 years of being single, I struggle to trust anyone enough to let them into my life. Story 67. I have several mental health challenges, including well-controlled borderline personality disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Getting out of survival mode was nearly impossible due to a lack of trust in everyone except my child, along with feelings of paranoia, episodes of borderline personality disorder, depression, and anxiety. Putting Pandora back in the box was incredibly difficult. It took years of therapy and daily mental exercises, especially given my pre-existing trust issues. I focus on taking one day at a time. Story 68. Trust issues have affected my ability to trust. I trust my fiancé, but it's a logical trust one have to convince myself to maintain. He came home from working out this morning with a bruise on his collarbone and a couple of scratches on his back. He tells me about his workout routines, and I know his male friend well, as they were pressing on a bench this morning, which is where the injuries came from. However, when I saw them, my heart sank. I know he isn't actually cheating on me, and I didn't say anything to him because he did nothing wrong. Nevertheless, I've been anxious about it all day and will simply have to accept and embrace my unfounded nervousness until it passes. Story 69. Realizing that no matter how long you've been together, someone can wake up one day and decide not to love you anymore. You may not feel worth choosing to love. The life you built together, the dreams you shared, and the love you gave may ultimately mean nothing to the person you envisioned a lifelong future with. I lost my entire sense of self-worth. I no longer feel attractive or good enough in any aspect. Story 70. When I see people getting divorced, I often blame the wife. This has changed my perspective on women, and not positively. Story 71. For me, it was clear he was cheating, especially evident the moment we separated. However, he wouldn't admit it because that would make him a bad person. He made many statements about why he was unhappy in our relationship, which made me feel like a terrible or broken person. One specific comment he made was that he wished I had never told him about my childhood trauma because our daughter was the same age, and it lingered in his mind during our intimate moments. This made me question my entire sense of self and added an additional layer of trauma that I wouldn't have experienced if he had been honest about why he wanted to end things. Now that I reflect on it, I realize he was either trying to make me the one to leave or was simply being dishonest. He called me joyless, but I'm genuinely happy now, while he is miserable, despite marrying his affair partner. I'm grateful that this experience didn't affect my ability to trust others. It only impacted my trust in him. Story 72. The worst thing was that I did not get a moment of sleep the night I knew he was going to cheat. He actually let me know. His cheating was partly a way to take revenge on me for my own infidelity, which I had admitted. It was also a means of establishing new rules between us. Since then, we have been in what we call a discrete open relationship, which is essentially a normal, loving relationship in which we are both allowed to have nights out. Story 73. I still have trouble trusting people when they do nice things for me or give me compliments, not even romantic partners. I know it's something I need to work through, but a part of me always feels that when people are being nice, they are going to hurt me and make me think, what are they trying to get from me? It is really challenging and has made wanting to date very difficult. Story 74. People who have cheated and gotten away with it need to read this. Confessing an affair is for you to feel better about yourself, not to help the person you betrayed in any way. If the other person doesn't know, you take it to your grave. You let it eat you up and mess with the way you think. You don't multiply it by unburdening yourself on that other person. You did the wrong thing, you deal with it. Do the right thing and stay silent. Story 75. Trust issues. Not necessarily with partners, but with everyone in your life. I remember that what troubled me the most was the close people I interacted with who knew but weren't telling me. I don't blame them because it's not their responsibility, but it can damage your self-image and make you worry about how others perceive you. Story 76. Being told it was my fault that he cheated messed with my mind. I know now that it wasn't my fault at all, but it took a long time to reach that realization. Story 77. How cold and distant I became to others. They saw how I had changed, but I didn't recognize it in myself. Thankfully, I have moved on, but you never forget how awful you felt afterward. Story 78. The insecurity. I spent years trying to overcome it. It's like a dark cloud that follows you everywhere. I didn't trust anyone, both in friendship and in relationships. Story 79. I accepted that after the third person started cheating, it was going to be a recurring issue in all my relationships. Story 80. Being able to recognize the worst in people immediately allows you to identify toxic behaviors that an individual is inclined to exhibit based on your own experiences of pain. Story 81. My husband deceived me for 4 months. I still have no idea what he did. I suspect there is drinking and sexual addiction. It's driving me crazy. We were together for 32 years. Story 82. It doesn't matter how good and trustworthy a person you meet in the future. That thought will always be in the back of your mind, even if you trust them. Story 83. A broken heart, low self-esteem, low self-worth, and serious trust issues with men, accompanied by feelings of humiliation. Story 84. To everyone responding to this question, some people can be truly difficult. Eventually, you may find yourself in the wrong, and then you will feel the same way. Alternatively, you might not and will desire recognition for your goodness. There are no rules, only those that you have created in your mind. Story 85. Making me insecure in all my future relationships. After about 5 or 6 of my serious relationships ended in infidelity, it became an assumption that felt unreasonable not to protect myself from. Story 86. The fall from grace. You realize that it was your love all this time that made the other person so special. In the absence of the light that your love cast upon them, they are just ordinary people who became beautiful because you chose to see them that way. Story 87. While it didn't happen to me, the worst situation I can think of involves children. There is a presumption of paternity when a married woman has a baby. In many states, there is a small window where a man can challenge paternity, typically 1 to 3 years. Therefore, you could find out that your 2-year-old is not actually your child but still be financially responsible for the child for another 16 years, even if you divorce the mother. Story 88. I have felt a profound sadness for the loss of trust that is now inherently ingrained in me. It has affected my life and love. I have a harder time trusting people and truly believing in love and that I am loved. My self-esteem was severely damaged. Someone nailed it. It has hardened me. One thing that weighs heavily is a conflicting feeling that I dislike when I think, why can't I get over this? And the shame that comes from even considering it because I know it is nonsensical. What did I do wrong? When I heard What Might Have Been by Little Texas for the first time, the accuracy of the reminiscence of the past brought me to tears. Story 89. I suspected everyone was cheating on me in some way after that. I'm getting better at trusting again, but what it taught me was that I should never invest everything I have in another person. If they betray me, I would have to start over. That's not going to happen. Story 90. I think what bothers me the most is all the time I wasted on them. When I could have been doing other things, including important or enjoyable activities, I chose to spend it on them instead. I wish I could go back and reclaim that time I spent. Story 91. She moved in with my parents for the next 8 months. They were aware of the situation. During that time, she spun a different story, making me the bad guy and damaging my relationship with my parents for not forgiving her for what she called an honest mistake. I wish I were making this up. Story 92. I have trust issues with my current partner. I am working on them because I love this person, and I know she loves me back, possibly even more than I love her. Story 93. Grief for the loss of my family. I learned in therapy that after she packed up our daughter and left, my brain processed the loss as though my wife and 4-year-old daughter had passed away. I grieved. Let that sink in. It left me with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, among other things. I'm still not over it. I probably never will be. Story 94. I don't trust anyone, not just in romantic relationships. I feel utterly alone in the world. If the person I loved more than anything, with whom I built a family, a business, and an entire life, could betray me like that, then anyone is capable of anything. Story 95. Hypervigilance and trust issues. My ex asked for a break, and while we were in the relationship, I felt fine in terms of trusting her. However, when she requested a break, it triggered memories of an ex from 2 years ago who cheated on me after asking for space. That trauma preyed on my anxiety, and I found myself projecting someone else's actions onto someone who had nothing to do with that situation. I believed I was ready for a relationship after 2 years, but I couldn't have predicted the emotional response I would experience in a certain situation. Now, I must focus on myself and understand that it wasn't my fault. I need to heal from both of those relationships in their own ways and find my own path. Story 96. The loneliness. I wasn't going to stay with someone who didn't respect me enough to be faithful and honest, but being single afterward was so lonely. I missed the connection and physical affection, even if I didn't miss him. Eventually, I met my now husband, so maybe it was a blessing in disguise. Story 97. A child has to spend 1 week with me and 1 week with her. My trust issues and my broken mindset have led to the end of my new relationship. Story 98. I cannot fully trust the words that come from others because he lied so easily about how much he loved and cared for me. Story 99. A guy I went to high school with cheated on his fiancée with a prostitute in Mexico and transmitted HIV to her. The only reason I know is that she went on a furious rampage, airing it all out on Instagram. Situations like that terrify me. Story 100. The paranoia that follows causes worry about it happening again or never stopping and continuing in secret. This is followed by comparison and a sense of self-hatred. Story 101. I changed. It slowly affected me for a long time and never stopped until I finally left the relationship. I wish I had left sooner. Story 102. I took her back because I love her too much. I was miserable and lost when she was gone. We have children, and I couldn't be away from them. I told her I would never bring it up again. Not once have I acted like I don't trust her. I don't look through her phone or call to see what she is doing. But I think about it every day, all day. I keep it bottled up inside. How could she do this to me after 16 years? She confided in this person for months, both sexually and emotionally. He was married, and so was she. I feel like a shell of a man, struggling in many ways. I'm not sure how long I can keep going. Story 103. The second child is not mine. The corrupt family court system told me to leave. I am frustrated with the system and the judges. Story 104. Realizing how much effort you put in while they went behind your back at every turn. You changed yourself to fit their mold, yet it still wasn't enough to earn their loyalty. Story 105. I will never trust a pretty face the same way again. Her cheating was the wake-up call I needed. It was a difficult time for me. Story 106. Looking back, I realized that a part of myself that gave love so freely and trusted so wholly no longer exists. I want her back, but I know that I will never have that again. Story 107. Going through sexually transmitted infection testing and the waiting period is incredibly challenging. If the other person was aware of difficulties in your past, it can feel as though their betrayal was a deliberate act to hurt you, causing you to question what you did to make them feel that way. This can lead to a lack of trust in yourself. You made a judgment call, you trusted someone, and believed you made the right choice only to be betrayed. This leaves you struggling to have faith in your own judgment. Story 108. Broken trust. Loss of self-confidence. Feelings of inadequacy. Constantly being guarded. Loneliness. Feeling unwanted. You may never see them the same way again. Losing your best friend. Always questioning their honesty and loyalty. Story 109. I couldn't admit that I was also cheating, but I stopped a month before. My reaction was fake because I couldn't openly be a hypocrite. Story 110. The stress of finding out triggered a seizure, my first. I fractured my spine during this seizure, causing lifelong severe back pain. I am still disabled 17 years later. Story 111. I am reading the replies and feeling emotional because I discovered this a month ago. Everyone has expressed everything I want to say in much better words than I could. Story 112. Every relationship I've had, except this current one, has involved emotional and financial abuse, as well as infidelity. The worst outcome of all of this has been my diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. Ending a dozen relationships in betrayal, despite promises of forever, has deeply affected me. Now, I find myself ruining any new relationship because I only know chaos and trauma. Story 113. It made it almost impossible to trust anyone and filled me with a rage that has barely abated in 3 decades. I once came very close to enacting a plan that would have condemned my soul forever and almost certainly resulted in a long prison sentence. I was compelled by a change in circumstances to abandon my plan, and I still feel cheated of my vengeance to this day. Story 114. People who harm children and commit fraud deserve the highest consequences. Such actions are calculated and cold-blooded decisions that ruin lives. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.